Okay, let's find some spice in the 5-0 decklist dump. Psychic Frog, Psychic Frog. Oh, hold on a minute. I don't even know what some of these cards do. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for some post-grief ban legacy action. And Morty's dog gave me a dealer's choice donation deck list, and I found something pretty spicy in the 5-0 decklist dump. I hesitate to call this deck Death and Taxes, but that's essentially where we're at. It's fundamentally a little bit different. You're still going to see like the 80 card Yori and D&T general shell here. This is much more red than a red-white D&T deck list tends to be. And part of that has to do with Ajani, Nacatl Pariah. This is a card that has seen a ton of play in Modern and a little bit of play in Legacy as well. For 2 mana, you get 2 bodies, which is great, and this can potentially flip into a Planeswalker. What today's deck is really trying to do is throw some cats at people's faces. So imagine this. Turn 2, Ajani, attack with a bunch of creatures. You know, if you get to attack with all of them, you might get 1 damage from Ajani, 2 damage from the token, 2 damage from Broadside. You throw a cat at your opponent's face for some more damage. That's an additional 2 damage. Then you get your Planeswalker. You zero that, and you might still have a couple of creatures, so you deal some additional damage to your opponent because you do control a red permanent. And this is some neat deck building here. There are a handful of things around the edges of this deck list that you probably won't recognize, such as Kassandra Eaglebearer. I believe this is from the Assassin's Creed set, which has a bunch of assassins. When it enters, search your graveyard, hand, and library for a card named the Spear of Leonidas, put it onto the battlefield. Whenever a creature you control with a legendary equipment attached to it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So let's look at that spear. It is a colored equipment. When equipped creature attacks, you choose one of Double Strike, making a legendary 3/2 red horse creature token, or discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. So notably here, with the Double Strike ability and Kassandra, it's whenever a creature you control with a legendary equipment attached to it deals combat damage to a player. So you could theoretically equip this, get Double Strike, get 2 card draws out of it, which is pretty cool. And having that discard to then draw 2 cards ability is strong. Notably here, the discard is not required. So I believe if you are hellbent, you discard 2 cards, meaning 0, and then you draw 2 cards. This is not worded like discard the 2 cards as a cost to draw 2 cards. Outside of that, the remainder of the normal D&T shell is overall here. So we're going to be looking to grind games out over time. And we have a bunch of, let's drag that on screen. It's hard to get a Yorian deck list onto screen well. We have a bunch of powerful but narrow cards. Very obviously, things like this are targeted at Eldrazi, while things like Pyroblast are targeted at Psychic Frog specifically. So you can have Swords of Plowshares plus Solitudes plus Pyroblasts plus Path to Exiles to just not lose to the frog. So yeah, let's see how this spice does in our new meta game here. We'll probably get some free wins with Magus of the Moon, which you know that I love. And should you need your copies of Kassandra Eaglebearer or the Spear of Leonidas, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. If you use promo code ThrabenU when you do, you'll save 5% on your order, and you always get free and fast shipping no matter what. Let's see how this deck list does. So this is a little mana light for my liking with only 2 lands. If I don't hit that 3rd land, I'm not really doing anything, and Wasteland is currently pretty damning. I'd rather have too much mana than not enough mana with this deck. What is my land count here, counting these? 33, so I have 31 in 73 with 2 draws. All right, so like somewhere in the 68% ballpark. I guess considering that some of the things like Aether Vial and Mother of Runes and Swords to Plowshares are also hits, that's probably good enough, but I'm not in love with this keep. A Ponder, that's fine. Never punished, baby. I don't think I want to be wastelanded right now, so I think I am just going to play out a basic land and pass. You could make an argument that I should fetch now to play around Stifle effects, but Blooded Strand makes it seem like I might be a blue deck, and that might cause my opponent to behave differently. All right, Same old Psychic Frog nonsense that we are used to seeing. So this looks to be a blue-black Reanimator deck of some kind. I think I am not going to fetch. I wouldn't mind drawing additional lands here. So, yeah, and yeah. Basic plains. We are going to jam a Stoneforge into Daze, just kind of with the mana that we currently have available. It's pretty much always going to hit something, and we'll force our opponent to use removal, or we'll do something gross. With a second Stoneforge, just forcing them to remove the first is probably fine. I will get Cauldron the first time. I think you can make an argument that something like Lion Sash is perfectly reasonable if our opponent is going to be reanimating trolls. I admittedly already have an answer to a troll if one sneaks into play, so that's not necessarily the end of the world. Archon of Cruelty is obviously very good. Yes, that is occurring. So I'm sacrificing a Stoneforge here. My Broadside isn't particularly great as of right now. It's very aggressive, which I like about it, especially when my opponent is at 10 life. I think I'll just get rid of a Flicker Wisp. I would love to naturally just draw a Swords to Plowshares, although it's a little awkward with a second red source. I think I'm always taking damage from this here. I'm gonna pay the life. This is so much damage as a 2-turn sequence. I don't think I get to do that though. I think I need to Solitude and pitch the Ajani. If this gets Force of Willed, I can Recruiter of the Guard for another one and try to remove it again because I'm just not going to survive an Archon of Cruelty. I am going to get to remove it. Goodbye, Solitude. Hello, Stoneforge Mystic. We shocked this in so that we could play around Daze on our secondary spell here. It's Double Strike. Whipping that is tough. A Lion Sash is like not the best right now. I still think I'm going to pick it up for long-term prospects. So if my opponent does not remove my Stoneforge and I put this Cauldron into play, I am threatening a shit ton of damage. But they do have the removal spell, unfortunately. It's that jerk. Sure. So this is not great. Land would be cool. How am I getting rid of this? Potentially throwing something with Broadside? Anything I do this turn is dazeable. So let's try this. I don't expect it to work. All right, so Psychic Frog is now very, very likely to just run away with this game. And you see the blue-black Riskaminator deck list just functioning not quite at full strength, but at very close to it, with Grief being gone still. Psychic Frog is just one of the best things to be doing in the format, unquestionably. All right, second land drop. Please don't do another Psychic Frog. All right, no follow-up creature. That is in theory good. In practice, I don't know that it actually is good, because if my opponent does not have, say, another 1-drop creature, it probably means that they have counter spells. I just get 2-turn clocked by this frog, and I have very little to say about that. And Broadside is maybe not going to actually work as removal for the frog. I think the way that I set up Broadside being removal for frog is playing Stoneforge, getting a Cauldron into play, and potentially throwing a Cauldron at Psychic Frog. But we are absolutely choked on mana, which is something that I talked about when evaluating the opening hand. I'm not getting to move towards Lion Sash plus activate. I am not getting to move towards play, equip, attack in the same turn cycle. Generally speaking, it's just bad. Entomb got Atraxa, by the way. Thoughtseize is good. That's the low-hanging fruit for the replacement for Grief. Yeah. We have to keep this in the format until December. Fatal Push, Animate Dead, and Swamp. All right, yep. Well, I can take between 1 and 5 damage this turn, and then lethal next turn. I think I need a Swords to Plowshares style effect to stay competitive in this game. All right, opponent's going in for a little bit more damage, and the Psychic Frog just allows my opponent's tempo cards like Daze and Force of Will. I only get to play 1 real spell this turn. Which one of these cards is more threatening, the Atraxa or the Psychic Frog? This is wild to say. I think the Atraxa is slightly more threatening. It just sucks if I draw something like Parakas off the top that could bounce this. But I think my plan is remove the Atraxa, play Jitte, try to throw Jitte at Frog. Choice is irrelevant. Yeah, Force of Will and Daze. At this point, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I am deterministically dead on board. Sure. Let's get a pile of removal in here. Path to Exiles in. Pyroblasts in. I don't think I am interested in Wrath of the Skies. Magus of the Moon is mid. Surgical is probably fine, but not overly exciting. Lauren's pretty narrow. It can hit an animate dead. That's not the greatest. My tutor effects are a little slow here. They are ways for me to get removal spells, which is nice, but they are slow. That's maybe fine if I'm doing some of this. I think I'm going to trim at least the Imperial Recruiter. Magus of the Moon may or may not actually do anything. My opponent has Swamp Cycling for Troll and is pretty heavily incentivized to play the games on basics if they can. So I might just be trying to play a pile of removal, and I could trim some Aether Vials from here. I am going to use initial mana to cast spells that look like this a decent portion of the time. I guess also makes less sense if I'm boarding in Path to Exile as well. And I don't exactly know how to evaluate this card here. Like, it into Broadside is still very much a plan that I would like to be able to do. Let's trim a couple of those. I can get the Surgicals in as well if I cut all of the vials, and we just expect this game to slow down a bit. Generally speaking, I am not a fan of Aether Vial as a legacy card anymore. I think it has been basically power crept out of the format. Hand is an obvious keep with 3 different removal spells. Has the same problem as last hand, though, where I don't really have enough mana unless I hit more off the top. All right, opponent's just making a land drop and passing. If I don't draw a land, I will certainly just jam the Stoneforge Mystic. If I do draw the land, it gets a little more complicated for whether or not I should just wait and try to play around the days. I think I am not playing around days. We live in a world where my opponent might just end up entombing end of turn and then creating a giant creature. And if I sit back too long, that reanimation plan has time to come together. We will, I think, pick up Lion's Sash with this hand as it's currently configured. My opponent didn't get black immediately with something like an Underground Sea. Maybe because I am showing Wasteland, maybe because they are intending to cycle at end of turn, but they are not intending to instantly entomb. We can see something like an Animate Dead here. Yes, your Thoughtseize occurs. I have lost the Lion Sash. Sure. I'll draw off the top. Let's go. So this is probably just attack for 1, play the Recruiter, get some mid-range card, potentially another Stoneforge Mystic, potentially a Skyclave, 16, and we can work on answering something like a Troll a little bit later on. Spells are resolving. Broadside is a lot of damage and pressure. Stoneforge is cool, but is very slow. Spirit of the Labyrinth is interesting against Psychic Frog. Skyclave is interesting versus Psychic Frog. I think with 3 removal spells in hand, I want something that advances my own board. I think I will go with another Stoneforge Mystic. That gives me the possibility to Stoneforge next turn while also playing Path to Exile. All of that around days. I don't think my opponent currently has days, but it is something very reasonable that they could draw. If Stoneforge Mystic resolves, I can also just get Kaldra and put Kaldra in immediately and swing. That wouldn't be great versus Brazen Borrower, but otherwise would be pretty strong. That is an Animate Dead. That is occurring. I have 3 removal spells for that. I'm not losing the game to that. That's a little late. I could just use this to check and see what is in my opponent's hand to give myself more information for this turn cycle. I don't think I am into that, though. I think I'm into this. So let us attempt a Stoneforge Mystic. That is a Force of Will pitching Consigned to Memory. Follow up with probably Path to Exile on the Troll, so I can go ahead and get on in there for some damage. It's gone. No 3rd basic land. I am going to attack for 2, and I'm going to leave my opponent with their land. I have a 5-drop that I would like to cast, and another 5-drop that I would like to cast. I don't think it is profitable for me to be currently wastelanding Underground Sea, especially when I myself am currently wastelandable. Yes, that's fine. So the fear here is that my opponent can clear all of the removal, stick a Psychic Frog, and then a Psychic Frog just leads my opponent to victory. But no frog immediately. So we're going to go to Punchies, and in for 2. No flashed in Bowmaster or anything to mess with combat. We'll go Ya, put a Yorion to hand, and call it a turn. We now have Solitude available in case of an emergency. I would prefer not to use that. More Swamp Cycling, sure. It is a Surveil land. Randomly binning an Archon. That's not fantastic. We have a Surgical to help cover that. Marsh Flats is cool. Let's go to Punchies. Send on in for 2. Opponent is at 7. At this point, I would love to resolve Yorion on both of these cards. I think I'm going to surgically extract Archon of Cruelty before my opponent puts something on the stack targeting it to just see if my opponent has Force of Will. So let's do that. Consign to Memory, which specifically counters triggered abilities or colorless spells. All right, is there anything spicy here? A Go Over the Throat, 2 Engineered Explosives, and Orcish Bowmasters. Sure, this is pretty expected. So, Consign to Memory can counter a triggered ability. So it can counter the Yorion ability. My opponent is at 7 life though. I think just putting Yorion into play as a 4/5 beater is pretty reasonable. So yeah, so let's see if my opponent counters this trigger. So I do not actually want to exile these things, because if I exile these things, my opponent can counter with Consign to Memory and keep my things in exile. So we're just going to click Done and try to hit my opponent for 6 of their 7 life next turn. Here is the Desperation Engineered Explosive as a 4 mana removal spell for just Stoneforge Mystic. Cast, equip, double strike, win. We can do it this way though. Like, yeah, because this is an activated ability, not a triggered ability. So yeah, put in the Spear of Leonidas, equip to Yorion, send on in. Let's do double strike rather than creating the extra body. The extra body could be hindered by something like a Bowmaster block in a way that this isn't going to. All right, fantastic. So we know EE is a thing that is coming. That's another thing that makes Vials worse. Could do Lauren to fight against that. I like not having Magus in the deck. I think I am, generally speaking, okay with how we're sideboarded. I could Containment Priest as well. I missed that for the previous game over like 1 Ajani or something like that. That's probably expendable. All right, we have 3 lands this time. That's fantastic. This one's a keep. Opponent is going down to 5 cards. We should not get excited though, because a Psychic Frog that goes wild undoes so much in terms of bad mulligans or clunky starts. Fetch land into just pass the turn. Ooh, Swords is a fantastic draw. We are going to ignore red mana for right now and just start this game on a basic, given what this hand looks like. And let's throw a Mom into play. There is some portion of the time where our opponent just goes end of turn Entomb, which it looks like they're going to do. Oh, no, it is Fatal Push instead. Yeah, absolutely. I am fine with 1-for-1 trades right now. All right, that's why we got the basic. Now, I don't have anything great to do with my mana for this turn. I think I am just going to play Wasteland and pass. And if my opponent wants to Wasteland my Wasteland, I will Wasteland their Underground Sea in response. And especially with my opponent having another Underground Sea now, I don't think this game is about Wastelanding my opponent off of colored sources. If my opponent goes colored land into Psychic Frog, I have Swords to Plowshares for that. And then if that doesn't work, I could Solitude or Skyclave or whatever. My opponent needs Force of Will and blue card here to protect this. Daze alone does not do it, which is great for us. That's a great draw for me. With 3 removal spells in hand, we get to Recruiter of the Guard. I kind of like Lion Sash here to check large things from coming out of the graveyard. I think I like that better than something like Containment Priest or something more proactive like Stoneforge Mystic. I think this is a don't let the game slip away moment. And I think this is the critical turn for my opponent. If my opponent can like reanimate something right here before I untap, or they find a counterspell for Lion Sash, I think they can be in okay shape. They did not shuffle. Animate dead? Animate dead. Sure, you've got it. Oh, double Wasteland is a thing that I am legally allowed to do. I kind of don't hate taking 5 to put Lion Sash in play and just never have another creature come out of the graveyard. Skyclave around Daze is perfectly fine. It's pretty unlikely that my opponent entombs plus reanimates. My opponent could reanimate a troll. Maybe let's not take 5 if I'm going to take 3 from a Witch Enchanter in the not too distant future though. But we'll nuke Animate Dead, causing the troll to be sacrificed. I'll send in for 1. And all we're trying to do is prolong this game with resources that look like this and the Yorion. We're pretty likely to win this game if we drag on the game. Like, I am not just immediately dead to something like a Psychic Frog hitting play. I have multiple answers to that. More troll and passing the turn. You've got it. So for the purposes of seeing if my opponent has something like a Bowmaster that they are going to play, I'm going to go ahead and do my attack for 3 immediately. Opponent's at 16. Then I think I like pay 3 life and drop the Lion Sash into play with the ability to activate it twice. Fantastic. This is going to accelerate very quickly as a threat while also serving as a shield to the more broken things that my opponent could be doing. Yes, this is fine. So at end of turn, let's start eating the trolls. Once this counter is on this creature, it is shielded from Bowmasters. We'll take out that other troll, I can keep going to town on my opponent's graveyard if I feel like that is the correct thing to do with my mana. Drawing yet another removal spell. Let's start by sending in. I'm ahead on board, so we're going to make our opponent make the first move here. There we go. There is an Orcish Bowmasters. My opponent is going to ping this with the intention of doing a double block, or sorry, a block. I think I'm fine with that. I don't think that's worth like my solitude or anything. I am good with all of these exchanges. My opponent gets a 2/2. I don't mind that. I will put 2 bodies into play while leaving up a Lion Sash activation, which can do something like eat a Bowmasters out of the graveyard and continue to grow my Lion Sash. We've got 3 removal spells in hand. We're in a really good position, and we put the win on the board despite Psychic Frog being horrifying. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and honestly, they're just the best at what they do. If you need to keep your deck lists online, this is the way to do it. They have all sorts of different viewing options. You can condense that text if you like things to be tight. You can make them visual grids. You can put them in stacks. You've got all sorts of different ways to kind of view and visualize your deck lists, and they also have some really cool functionality, like allowing you to see playtest hands and even fully playtest your decks. So check them out. Okay, I have kept a slightly mana light hand. That just may kind of be the norm of this deck. With 3 playable early game spells, I think this is perfectly fine. Enter? Nope. GG, well played. That's fine. That one we can Swords to Plowshares. Note it is a legendary creature. I could just Karakas it, but I want this thing just gone. I do not want it to come back. If you haven't seen this thing in action in other formats, it is kind of a self-contained Ruby Medallion sort of card, while, oh, we're just going again, while also threatening to win the game later on. Reckless Impulse. Okay, so it is in the Ruby Storm ballpark. My opponent is going to have a lot of mana here, and unfortunately, my deck is not well suited to beating a Storm combo deck. A lot of times you will see the sideboards of these decks full of things like Deafening Silences, Mindbreak Traps, things of that nature, and I just don't have that here. Are we going to get lucky and this is just like goblins and in some world we beat goblins? However, the storm count is high enough that that is 14 goblins. I block 2 this turn, I take 12. My opponent has 10 goblins left. Then I can block 3 effectively. Let's keep playing. Seems like I'm dead, but let's find out for sure. Do I even have Thalia in this deck list? Oh yeah, we're so dead this matchup. All right, block 1. So I transform my Planeswalker, which can just immediately give me another cat. I could make a cat, Flicker Wisp my Planeswalker, and then make another cat, flip my Planeswalker, do blocks, and repeat the process. That's kind of cool. Do I have some giant lifelinking idiot that I can search up? It doesn't look like it. No. I'm going to show my opponent the red land. It just like is not super relevant for this matchup. All right. I don't have a red permanent, so this is just make a cat. We will Flicker Wisp, flicker my Planeswalker, move to end of turn, produce 2 more bodies. I now block 4 of the 12. Oh wait, 4 of the 12 is not enough. Yeah, so we go down to exactly 0 there. Do I have a Solitude line instead? Make a cat, play a Recruiter of the Guard. That gets rid of one more thing. No. Make a cat, play Ajani from hand. I can Wrath of the Skies to have an out to goblins. I can Damping Sphere, which is one of the better cards I can do. Surgical Extraction is not super potent. Pyroblast is the wrong sort of thing. This is just frankly not a matchup that we want to be playing. This deck is not designed to beat combo that looks like this. Magus of the Moon can come out. We don't even have that many good things to Imperial or Recruiter of the Guard for. Like Lauren is about the best. Spirit of the Labyrinth sometimes good. This is potentially a Ral and Bergie deck list. Maybe I cut both of these. I don't necessarily need maximum aggression here. That gets me back to 80. Could play Path to Exile just as more things to hit something like a Ral early. Not in love with it, might end up doing it. Jete is kind of mid. Could go down 1 generic finisher of some kind. I do not like how this deck is positioned versus combo. And one of the things that I talked about, I don't think I like this hand. It's got a Karakas, which is kind of cool versus Ral, but I think I would like to fish for something like a Spirit of the Labyrinth on my first hand. This is 2 lands, play Ajani, don't have 3rd land for this. Is this an acceptable 6? Like I just try to clock my opponent? I don't love it. Anyway, one of the things that I talked about was that to some extent, I expected combo to come back. Grief leaving the metagame means that some layer of attack on fast combo has been removed. I'm going to pick up a basic here because I probably don't ever need red, and on the off chance that my opponent does some sort of Blood Moon effect, I want to still be able to play my cards. There was a thread going before that and I lost that thread. All right, there's a Ruby Medallion. So my 3 different removal spells do not interact with that card, unfortunately. So here we go. We are the beatdown. We've got an initial attack 4/5, bringing my opponent to 15. I'll then throw a cat at my opponent's face, transforming my planeswalker, hitting my opponent to 13, zeroing Ajani, which makes a cat, which domes my opponent for 2 more damage. My opponent is at 11. They will get clocked very, very quickly. And the question is, like, do they just combo Rue my aggro hand? I will Solitude that as soon as I get priority. We are just not letting this thing get out of control. It is worth going down the card here to just stop immediately and take no chances. So that gives our opponent an extra life, but we do not want that thing to transform into a planeswalker right now. Oh, there's another one. We can, in theory, Caracas that one out of play if it is still a creature at end of turn. All right, so it has transformed into the planeswalker side. So they can still use it as something to reduce the cost of instants and sorceries if they need to. Otherwise, they can use it as a removal spell and ultimately a win condition if it sticks around. All right, they are going potentially for a win here. Burning Wish, getting a Rite of Flame. That's mighty spooky. My opponent's play has slowed down a lot. That probably bodes well for me and means that it's not just clear what to do from here. So it's not easy. That was a Jeska's Will. Ooh. That is currently castable and very scary. Yeah, so everything except I think the first 2 cards here are going to be castable next turn. That includes a Burning Wish. So I have 2, 4, 5 damage if I plus, or 2, 4, 7 damage if I just do this. This is not a castable creature right now. I'm probably playing this as a tapped land this turn, putting Yorion into my hand. I probably have to kill the Planeswalker. I'm not going to sit here and do math for whether or not I am just going to die to my opponent's stuff. They can do the math. This is 3 damage, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 if I throw something. So I do not have lethal. So let's kill the Planeswalker. Send at face, send at Ral to finish Ral off. Opponent's at 9. I can throw something with Broadside. That's 2 immediate damage versus 2 damage next turn in the future, but with the 0 ability here, I get 1 more damage out of the cat if I wait. I'm going to play basic planes and put Yorion into my hand so that I leave Caracas available, and we'll see if I'm dead. It feels like I should die. There's a Ral. When I get the opportunity, I will attempt to bounce that with Caracas. Now, some amount of the time, my opponent can just fire off more spells in response and transform this with this. Fuck. I'm gonna try. But any spell my opponent casts right now does not get copied by the bonus round, which is cool. All right, so if you haven't seen bonus round in action before, it is pretty obnoxious. My opponent is going to get copies of all of the instants or sorceries that they cast, which means Manamorphose really starts turning into a cool ritual, and these Ren's Resolves and such dig really deep. It's gonna be kind of boring from here if I narrate all of this, so I'm just gonna give you relevant updates. My opponent has flipped a Ral, plussed a Ral, and played a Ruby Medallion, so most of the spells that my opponent can possibly play are just 1 mana at this point. Okay, a few spells later, we have a double Burning Wish with 16 mana available. I imagine that this just leads to my death in one capacity or another. Could be something like Fiery Confluence and copy it into Grapeshot. Could be Past in Flames. Opponent is getting another bonus round. Just show me a win condition and I will concede. Fiery Confluence. So if my opponent bonus rounds their Fiery Confluence twice, that's 6, 12, 18 damage. I'm not technically dead yet. This doesn't win yet. 1 other damage from something like a Ral trigger or something will do it. All right, so the Fiery Confluences are hitting the stack. I must have missed 1 copy of bonus round somewhere in there. Okay, GG's. I'm on the draw. I have 3 lands, which is great. I have an amazing endgame, which is great. Unfortunately, the most important turns of a Legacy game are kind of turns 1 and 2. I have an answer to something like a Psychic Frog that comes down. This is a very, very reluctant keep. I have a card that if it resolves just instantly wins some matchups. This is a matchup where a Magus of the Moon will be very good. So Solitude, not viable as a pitch card anymore. I think that's probably okay. That's a great turn 2 drop for turn 2. I think I'm just going to do Prismatic Vista and pass. While I might want to surveil land some portion of the time, when I know that Magus of the Moon is coming, I probably just want to have 2 basic planes. So we'll grab one now, do the marginal deck thinning, play a Flooded Strand again, grab another basic, and drop our cat friend. So this next turn is a critical turn for our opponent here, because this is the turn where they could find a planar nexus, drop that, have 5 mana, gem something really powerful like the One Ring, yeah, there's planar nexus, and pull ahead. If they do not do that immediately, my Magus of the Moon threatens to just steal this game. Sowing Mycospawn, very, very powerful card. Now the land here just goes onto the battlefield. We're not worried about Wasteland. It is just another Urza's Tower though, so my opponent can have, oh, that's fine. I am not going to Wasteland you this game. That's not what this game is about. So, do I want to attack with the Cat Warrior token to potentially transform this into a 5 loyalty Planeswalker? Or do I just want to leave this back and then my opponent does not have good attacks because I get a Planeswalker? Let's leave it back for right now. Let's just slam this. I don't know, maybe I do attack. I don't super care about the damage trade right now. All right, fantastic. My opponent will probably cycle their Vexing Bauble. This Solitude is now back online. Cards that have an actual factual colorless cost to them are no longer live, but things like the One Ring are still going to be live. Okay, my opponent's just holding back. So I, in theory, would like something that answers the One Ring. That probably means playing a Recruiter of the Guard in this turn cycle. So yeah, the Spirit of the Labyrinth is viable. A Skyclave Apparition is viable. Broadside to just kill my opponent, transform my cat is viable. I think I like the Skyclave. My creatures are going to be relatively safe with a Mother of Runes around. We could still get hit with something like a All is Dust on a bunch of natural mana that takes out my whole board, but failing something like that, we're probably okay. Now, the kicker cost for Sowing Mycospawn does require actual factual colorless mana, which my opponent currently does not have. All these things are just mountains. So it's not like kicked Sowing Mycospawn is going to be exiling my planes. Opponent must be trying to cast some X cost spell or something, or they're trying to kick Sowing Mycospawn and they don't realize they need colorless. Yeah, they were trying to kick Sowing Mycospawn, not realizing that they needed colorless. So if they have a basic wastes, they can go and grab that here so that they can operate with their colors. Eye of Ugin. So the most important thing here is to just remove the One Ring so my opponent can't keep drawing cards. That means I'm not Swords to Plowsharing this turn. I can still attack with this Cat Warrior. Mom's Protection not great versus the Devoid creatures. All right, opponent just takes the damage. Skyclave, take out the One Ring. Pass turn. Now, my Solitude currently doesn't have text. My opponent might end up sacrificing Vexing Bauble. We are definitely at the amount of mana where I have to start worrying about just kind of losing everything to an All is Dust. So Solitude is back online. Yeah, no, that's fine. That does very little with Mom in play. We're just chilling. Legend Rule my cat. I like Legend Rule my cat quite a bit here. Make a 2/1. Transform this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Soon to be 7 if I 0, which I will. Just dome my opponent is pretty sweet. That forces my opponent into a position where they try to be the aggressor and it doesn't go well for them. I have multiple removal spells, and then if they don't become the aggressor, this is just lethal next turn with the 0 ability. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, this is just lethal by itself. So 0, fuck man. Who needs a Planeswalker ultimate when a Planeswalker 0 ability will just kill your opponent in 2 turns? That game probably goes a bit differently if my opponent has a basic wastes in their deck, and depending on like where in the deck things like All is Dust are, like those cards could have been in the sideboard and my opponent was not actually drawing live towards them in game 1 at all. Magus of the Moon is great. Damping Sphere's ability to make lands only tap for 1 mana is great. Path is okay, but slightly awkward. Wrath of the Skies is a way that I can clear out some things like Flash Pithing Needle. I eat a lot of my own cards by doing that. So I think these 4 I'm really looking for. Jitte I am not excited about. Most of the rest of the cards in the deck are okay. Mom's weird. Mom can protect against some things that my opponent could be playing out of the sideboard, like Dismember, or that could have been in game 1. Like, this is a way to protect a Magus of the Moon, but the All Is Dust style cards are still going to eat it. I don't know how excited I am about that accordingly. This could be my 4 for 4. Got Spirits for the 1 ring, Skyclaves for the 1 ring, some ability to get some haste damage in. This is fine. Path's playable, Surgical's playable. Neither is super exciting. Opening hand has a Wasteland. That probably makes it good enough. I have 3 lands, which I am happy with as a mana-hungry deck. Would love to eat something like a tapped Cloud Post on turn 1. I'm not doing that. So I could Surveil land immediately. I could just Wasteland the Karakas immediately. Karakas is not the sort of land that I really want to take out with my Wasteland. But I think given that I'm on an aggro hand, I will just reset the mana of this game. Like, my opponent has probably played this Karakas knowing that I will some portion of the time Wasteland it, and then another one of their lands gets to survive. This time they have Spirit Guide plus Crop Rotation. That's fine. So it seems like my opponent with Karakas and Plains has a decent amount of white mana here. That's a fantastic draw. Really happy with that. We'll grab our basic and get a Vial ticking up, like so. And then this helps the Broadside significantly, just like giving me more things that I can do in terms of throwing things with Broadside to physically end the game. Vial goes up. Let's just fetch basics out of the deck. So in theory, next turn, I would like to use my mana to Broadside. Some portion of the time, I will instead do something like Recruiter of the Guard. I think I will still just play a Stoneforge Mystic out here, and we will get a Cauldra, even if sometimes I don't use that Cauldra immediately. The ability to threaten that much hasty damage is perfectly fine. We potentially will see something like the 1 ring come down, which again, I've already got a plan for. So my opponent can draw their card. I'll tick Vial up. Swords is mid. So we will go Recruiter of the Guard. Yes. While a Skyclave answers this permanently, I believe that I am looking for a short-term answer here. So I am going to just go ahead and put in the Spirit of the Labyrinth immediately and give a love tap with our Stoneforge Mystic. Then now that I have this Vial at 2, soon to be 3, I can instead Vial in Broadside, put in Cauldra, attack for a ton of damage, even throwing the Cauldra if I feel like that's a good thing to do. Planar Nexus means that my opponent has access to a ton of mana. All Is Dust is scary, Kozilek's Command is scary. That is a Swords to Plowshares, converting mana into white with Planar Nexus. Weird using that instead of basic planes. All right, card draw. There is a Kozilek's Command, producing bodies. My opponent had a lot of different ways through this turn. They are leaving open a white mana still. 2 top, 2 bottom. Vial is going to 3 here. I like Skyclave on the 1 ring. I'm going to do that at probably my end of turn. How am I using the rest of my mana? I don't hate just putting in the Cauldra, forcing the Swords to Plowshares on the Germ token, and then broadsiding next turn. So yeah. All right, opponent takes 6, down to 14. I'll fetch and Lion's Sash. Off plateau? Nah, off basic planes. Sowing Mycospawn is a hell of a drug. And then end of turn, activate this. Yes. Put in Skyclave, get rid of the 1 ring. Again, we are very much living in fear of a large game-ending haymaker, such as in All Is Dust, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, that sort of stuff. Damn it. So, no combat damage for me. I could throw something at a spawn. I don't know that I'm in love with that. Am I already always losing to All Is Dust? Accordingly, I think I'm just not going to play around it any further. I think I'm just going to say yes, put in a Broadside, pick this up. That way I can potentially Yorion next turn, which Enchanter destroys, which is not quite what I want here. My life fine? Life's probably fine. Let's pay the life, put this into hand. I could trade a Recruiter of the Guard for an Eldrazi spawn token by throwing with Broadside. I don't know that I'm into that. I have Yorion value coming. I don't think mana is a bottleneck for my opponent, right? So 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think the difference between 13 and 14 is very minimal. Crop Rotation. That's an Eye of Ugin. I can Swords to Plowshares whatever my opponent gets. So here's the activation. Afterwards, my opponent has 3, 6, 7, 8, effectively 9, 10, 11, and 12 mana. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. So getting rid of an Eldrazi spawn does not actually answer that card. Opponent takes some from their ring, draws some more cards. Now the good news is, hopefully, if they play Ulamog, it's kind of the only thing that they do. Hopefully. There's a little life. I mean, I say a little, but it's a healing salve. Like, it is a relevant amount. Opponent sacrificed their spawn. This is going to be a Kozilek's command first. Yikes. This is 2 different targets, so that is occurring. I can't fizzle that with something like swords. So my opponent can then follow up with Ulamog off 8 spawns. So I imagine I lose Cauldra. Second one's a little harder. Okay, they are going for the Vial, so I don't get free Yorion. That's fine. So I need a way to stop this Eye of Ugin from eating me alive. Let's assume that I need to just do this, and we can start eating things out of my opponent's graveyard. They're not, like, the most likely to matter. Oh, fuck. That's fucking good. Let's do that pre-combat, even. Wasteland, blow up the Eye of Ugin. Go to Punchies. Send them in. Notably, a Swords to Plowshares here can create a 4/4 body. All right, opponent takes a hit. Going to 20. There's Yorion. 1, 2. I don't want to exile Lion Sash. I will do Skyclave, though. My opponent gets a 4/4. Yorion trigger. We will Skyclave the One Ring and Recruiter for something. I think I conceptually like Magus of the Moon. Just lock out my opponent's big mana. I think I like that. I think Stoneforge doesn't have anything. Oh, no, I still have the spear. All right, One Ring, number 2, answered. Decent amount of power on board, ability to Magus of the Moon and shut off mana. Opponent still got 6 cards in hand, though. 2 copies of the One Ring. Did a lot of work. That's a lot of mana if I don't Magus. I mean, honestly, it's a lot of mana already, and I'm still just fucking terrified of all his dust. Okay, I like seeing that. I think I just like the Yorion attack this turn. Like, I could do this as a 4/4 and trade with this token, but if something weird like crop rotation for a Wasteland knock me off red happens, that's not great. My opponent could Wasteland me off red. They already would have done so, though, because I only have 1 red source showing. Maybe I shouldn't play around that. Let's just do the Yorion attack. All right, fantastic. Then I am going to play Magus of the Moon while holding up a Stoneforge activation for the spear or a couple of Lion Sash activations. Swords to Plowshares is not unexpected. I don't have a way to kind of deal with that as of right now. So now we're just kind of hoping for the fail rate of my opponent's deck, hoping that I have better things going on than they do. Stop it with these rings. This is the point of the game where, like, drawing a Karakas, 2 Karakas, Yorion, get rid of the next 1 ring starts to become very strong. Only 34 cards till our opponent mills out. That is a kicked Sowing Mycospawn, which can start going after my mana. So they are taking out a red source immediately. They are presumably going to get an Eye of Ugin with this trigger. I mean, that's also kind of some shit. I have 4 lands. I can keep all of my things for right now. I don't know that I want to. Opponent has protection from everything for this next turn cycle. My Lion Sash as a mana investment is no longer, like, awesome. I think I'm going to put in this spear. This is not on damage. I can just discard 2, draw 2, keep 2 mana available for equips. So let's get rid of Stoneforge. I think I'm going to get rid of that, and I think I'm going to keep these 2. It's very hard to do Karakas loop type stuff now. Awkward. So let's equip the Yorion, and we're going to do some glorified looting here. The Recruiter is fine. I just don't have the mana to use it. That is not the mana that I was hoping for. So I find it likely that I am now going to lose this game. I can, in theory, 2-turn clock my opponent with a Yorion. I just find that unlikely to actually work. And some portion of the time, my opponent can just start clocking me back with their creatures. And I die pretty quickly. All right, so here's where we're at after the upkeep. I hate this. Are we at Emrakul? We are at Emrakul. I am fine. I am fine conceding there. Like, that is always going to beat me, annihilating that many permanents. Let's save our time for the next game. So we now know that Swords to Plowshares is something that my opponent is playing in multiples, meaning that Mother of Runes is better than I thought it would be. Does that mean that it is actually good? So changes of approach I could do are having Mom for roughly 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares, or I could, on the play, do something like Wrath of the Skies, do it on 0 to get rid of spawn tokens that have, like, passed the turn. That seems mid. I think I'm okay with not playing the Moms. Like, they're 4 cards, they're very important cards, but I only care about the Mom when I have Mom plus Magus in the same draw, which in my 80 card deck is not gonna be every game. So, we got a tricky one here. I think I err on the side of a mulligan for this hand. While it can be incredibly aggressive once Aether Vial is on 3, I don't think I am getting myself established fast enough here. This one I like a lot more. I'm going to keep this one. I think Stoneforge Mystic is 2 mana intensive for this hand. I'm going to keep 2 copies of this, just rationalizing that I can legend rule one of them to get the Planeswalker side. I am not going to surveil land here. I just want the basic. That's a weird draw. I'm going to ignore that card, at least for right now. So, yeah and yeah. I may not need to play this turn. The only way I need to play this is if my opponent crop rotations at end of turn into like Planar Nexus plus an Urza land or something like that. I think I'm going to get my threat down and play Damping Sphere next turn. And maybe I get to Damping Sphere and Wasteland in the same turn cycle if I am lucky. And if I play Damping Sphere this turn and I draw a land next turn, I can't Vial plus another thing. So I didn't draw the land, but I can go ahead and send in for some damage. So yeah, there's 3. I don't think I Wasteland plus Vial. I think I play Damping Sphere. If I Wasteland Cloudpost and my opponent responds with something like a crop rotation, it's super, super bad for me. Sure. This is only 2 mana showing. Let's do our attacks. Now what? Cat make Planeswalker is fine. Vial plus Wasteland is also fine. And the goal of this Wasteland is just physically to keep my opponent off of 4 mana immediately. So let's see how this goes. I don't think I wait till my opponent's upkeep to do this, because in the upkeep, like my opponent now has colorless for something like a Ozilek's Command. All right, there's a crop rotation that I played around last turn. There's Planar Nexus. Elvish Spirit Guide. That is not going to work the way that you want. Damping Sphere. Oh, for Force of Vigor. Fuck me. Okay, I guess it is going to work the way you want. Well, that's a disaster. Sure. Unlikely to win the game from here. We are in, like, kicked Sowing Mycospawn, take my last land, get Tabernacle, kill both of my creatures. It doesn't let me stack these, but it went in the order that I wanted, so I guess that's fine. So, don't pay. Transform this. Need to draw land. Technically a land. So make a cat to defend my Planeswalker. Play a land. Don't shock. Pass turn. I'm so dead here, but we can pretend for another minute or 2. I am okay with that. So a Swords to Plowshares type card removes my cat, kills my Planeswalker. I would concede at that point if that happened. But while I have this Ajani, there's a glimmer of hope. That's not good. I think I'm going to value my own time here and move on. I just don't, even if this isn't getting something that strong, I just don't think I realistically beat this from here. So I'm going to toss in the towel. I'm not going to like try to time out my opponent. So this is a hand similar to one that I had in a previous round where I don't have a lot of this stuff. I have reasonable mana, a very good end game. I'm going to err on the side of keeping the mana heavy hand and hope that in 2 draws, I get something reasonable to do in the first couple of turns. If I just Wasteland to buy time to get another draw, our opponent says hello. Hopefully our opponent doesn't just like combo kill us. Furnace is the most likely explanation there. We are just going to take out this land. It's not the premium target. Urza's Saga is probably the premium target, but I am just looking to slow down this game and buy a little bit of time. We'll save that one for a minute. This is going to be a Surveil land, Elegant Parlor or whatever it's called. Would you like a parlor? Yes. Junking a Pyroblast. Painter was one of the deck lists that I talked about as being very well positioned in the Psychic Frog world, with main deckable Pyroblasts that have utility because of Painter, but also just kill Psychic Frog for 1 mana. So because we did not play Wasteland out immediately, our opponent was comfortable fetching an Elegant Parlor, which means that I can Wasteland that on the following turn cycle, assuming my opponent doesn't play something like an Urza's Saga that I care about more. Goblin Engineer. So I have long-term answers to that. I don't have short-term answers to that. I imagine a Painter is going to graveyard right now. Everyone always gets Phyrexian Dragon Engine. So elegant. Much Parlor. How many Swords to Plowshares? Negative. Graveyard that. That represents a Lion Sash over time. I think I am just going to take out an Urza's Saga though. My opponent does need another artifact to kind of get things going with the Goblin Engineer. This is a little scary. I have 3 removal spells plus Graveyard Hate at the ready, and I may or may not have time to deploy them this game. The multiple Wastelands did not buy me time. My opponent has hit all 4 of their land drops. Wisp is almost good. I guess Stoneforge is the play this turn. Is it Lion Sash? Or is it just like Cauldra here? It doesn't super matter. I'm not doing either one of them immediately because I need to use this on Painter so I don't die to Grindstone in another turn cycle or so. I think I'm gonna get the Lion Sash. Like, if I win this game, it's because this game slows down a lot. I believe that I am dead to land plus a Pyroblast effect. Oh, that is insane. That stops this from fetching the Grindstone. That's a really big deal. That is Wasteland number 3 in my 80 card deck, just in case anyone was counting. Yes, I am aware of how lucky that is. This is where I wish I had the Cauldra, but the Lion Sash can help stop some of this nonsense, can stop Painter recursion. Choked on mana, though. Ugh. All right, third Urza's Saga. Slightly better than my third Wasteland, not gonna lie. Okay, opponent does attack into like a Batterskull or Cauldra here. It's safer than it looks because of the Goblin Engineer. They can just swap it with Phyrexian Dragon Engine. All right, so I am going to just block the Painter. I think that's just my opponent trying to push an extra point of damage. I'll take 2. Let's make this Lion Sash. That's why they were willing to make the attack in. That makes sense. Is this Broadside or Skyclave? Probably Skyclave. Let's get another basic into play. Let's go, yeah. The goal is to answer Engineer this turn so that I can answer Painter next turn before this becomes a problem. Red mana? Oh, are you just going to get a Dragon Engine now? So my opponent can discard their 1 card, draw 3 cards, turning their Ancient Tomb into 3 random cards, and I'll pass here. So again, my axis that I am worried about is time. If this game drags on, I probably win. But my opponent's curve is lower on average than my curve, which is giving me some trouble right now. And that third Urza's Saga just threatening the combo finish while also, you know, threatening, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12-ish power, maybe 13-ish power immediately is just disgusting. Fucking stop it. No. Fuck. Fourth Wasteland. So I have a billion different ways to remove one of the 2 Painters, and I'm going to lose to the other one. I can't kill my opponent from 19. Urza's Saga did me in. Magus of the Moon, great. I think Wrath of the Sky is probably good enough. I don't mind Path to Exile. Surgical's playable. I don't think I want to fart around with my own Pyroblasts for if my opponent has a Painter. Magus of the Moon is awesome. I have a bunch of medium power level cards. A little slow. Might get rid of Moms. There's some text there. There's a lot of colorless things that matter. And if my opponent is playing Pyrokinesis style effects, Fury style effects, Mom just gets swept up in those. And then I could play one more thing if I don't want to Surgical. Spirit's pretty mid. Line up okay versus like a Fable or a Phyrexian Dragon Engine, but it's not shutting off a billion cards like it might from a traditional blue deck. Jitte seems high variance, probably unnecessary. I could also get rid of Kassandra and the Spear, but we mid-range war some portion of the time. I'm gonna trim a Spirit. I don't know how I feel about the Surgicals. They're fine. I just boarded in a pile of things that answers the creature side. This is fine. I don't love double Elegant Parlor. I would rather that these just be untapped lands of some nature, but hopefully this ends up being fine. I'm gonna start this game on a basic Plains. Again, we are a Magus of the Moon deck, so when we can fetch a basic Plains or 2 to set ourselves up for safety later on, it is generally speaking going to be good. If this game gets super slow, I can just make an army of cats. That is a thing that I'm allowed to do. Opponent might end up getting ahead of me in terms of mana. Like they have Mox Opals and Ancient Tombs that I don't have access to. Vexing Bubble's fine, and a Welder. Yeah, so my opponent's mana situation looking much better than mine as of right now. We'll make some cats. Now, opponent does only have 3 cards left. 2 cards is incredibly competitive, right? Just Urza's Saga directly into Painter here is already just so fucking brutal. Why do I talk? Why do I talk? And double Elegant Parlor is brutal here because I can't do something like Recruiter of the Guard immediately into an... There's more? Oh, that's fine. That's a filler slot. File goes up. Fucking A. Elegant Parlor. Attack for 2. Opponent does not want to block. Let's plan this out. Stoneforge. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. I think I'm just going to put that into my graveyard. And then let's make some more cats. I don't even need to use this. So I can activate Aether Vial, hold priority, bounce Ajani, say yes. I'm going to put this back in, and I'm going to grind out this way. I could try to go the Planeswalker route, but I think I'll just end up doing that next turn. And the Planeswalker is much better once I have the red permanent. Opponent's got one card left. I have a welder and a painter to beat. I think I can probably do that. So this goes up to 3. Elegant Parlor. Broadside attack. Throw cat at Goblin Welder. Trade Broadside for Goblin Shaman token. Transform Ajani. And then in some capacity answer the painter. I can answer it via exile. That seems fine. So attack. I don't think I want to give the Goblin Welder the free block here. So target Goblin Welder. All right, my opponent has 0 cards. They're going to just cycle something in response. Okay, that's fine. If my opponent wants to make this trade, it does require the double block. Ooh, they don't. That's great for me. That's really, really good for me. The 0 ability of this is stronger now. So I will Recruiter of the Guard. This is 3 creatures in play. Yes, I was planning on picking up Solitude. I don't think I need it now. I can just get Lauren for Lauren Caracas action. So then 0. Yeah, my opponent realized they messed up. So kill the painter. Then Elegant Parlor. Absolutely not on that. I guess I can just die to painter. Grindstone, painter, 1, 2, 3. So it's painter plus land. It's 2 exact cards. Otherwise, Lauren obliterates this game. I guess it's safer to Solitude still. I hope I didn't punt by doing that. I just win if I untap with this active Planeswalker. Maybe I should have still gotten Solitude so I don't die to Painter. Oh, it doesn't even have to be Painter land, it's just Painter. This is the 5th mana. All right, that's the draw 2, discard 2. Is there a Painter? Did I punt this one? Oh, no, I didn't. Past me remembered Vexing Bauble, that present me didn't. All right, so there's a redraw. At this point, Solitude is now live. Welder is good. There is Painter in the graveyard. That's mana. Okay, I probably just clean up this game very, very quickly here. Sure, that's fine. That's attacking my Planeswalker. I'll just block with a cat. That's fine. Like tradesies. This stays on 3, probably forever. Wow. Let's not think about this too much. So 0, kill Goblin Welder. I think with Lauren available, Witch Enchanter is just a land. So yeah, that's enough. We swung that one really, really hard. I don't know how I feel about the shell overall, but Ajani is doing some work when it is actually supported by a decent number of red cards and is not just a mono white or mono white adjacent card. Okay. Do I want to Containment Priest this game? Do I want an extra Spirit of the Labyrinth this game? Do I want Surgicals this game when I'm starting further behind? Unsure. These slots are probably expendable if I want a little more interaction when I'm on the draw and I am just slower. Containment Priest works against my Vials, which is a bit of a big deal. Hit stopping Painters, also a bit of a big deal though. I don't hate Surgical Extraction on Urza Saga. I think any number of these 3 cards in any combination is reasonable. Mom's also not crazy. My opponent just has mana acceleration when I don't, so some of these hate bear type things are just a little slow. I think I'm going to take some Surgicals on the draw, recognizing that sometimes they're not great, but if they keep me out of some early game Goblin Engineer type shenanigans, maybe it's fine. I'm going to keep it. I have an early interaction spell, which certainly matters. I have a late interaction spell that can become an early interaction spell in a pinch. I have a Surveil land, smooth out the initial draw. I'm not happy. I don't think the hand is good. I'm keeping it. Broadside is fine. I'm going to try to Surveil land this turn. We'll send that to the graveyard. So much Urza Saga. Please don't just have the Painter too. Well, I guess technically that's not the Painter too. However, shit. I did not think about that. So if I Source to Plowshares this Goblin Welder, my opponent just produces a 5/4 Trampler. It doesn't destroy one of my permanents, but then Goblin Engineer and do some gross things. I am going to lose this game. Yeah, I'm going to lose this game. I'm going to pass the turn and hope that my opponent goes for like an end of turn. Just put this into play to start attacking for 5. Take out the Goblin Welder. I don't know. Maybe I end up in a situation where the Chaos Defiler gets in play and then I just swords that. This only hits non-land permanents. Like maybe I just have to take out the 5/4 that is going to obliterate my board state and hope that my opponent does not end up with a Painter. My next turn can get kind of spicy. Yeah, don't do it. This is so hard to disrupt. 2 of these are going towards Grindstone. This is protected by Goblin Welder right now. Maybe I can do some Broadside throw Solitude nonsense. That gets me out of this. Fetch another Elegant Parlor, I guess. A little weird if I find a Magus of the Moon. No Devile. Okay. Basic planes, broadside, attack with broadside. So I do this in a way where painter ends up in the graveyard, right? So I solitude target goblin welder, then I throw solitude at painter. Painter goes to graveyard. My opponent needs another mana to go off. I can't exile the painter. If I point solitude at painter, my opponent just swaps it and lotus petal, which does not get me to where I need to go. Okay. So solitude, we're gonna junk Spirit of the Labyrinth. So I want evoke on the bottom. Do this, target welder. Now, broadside, target the painter, row the solitude. Broadside can't be blocked. Next turn, I can do the same sort of thing again. I don't have a white card in hand for solitude, but I have Yorion sitting here. Let's see if I'm dead. So 1, 2, 3 mana. One of these two things being a mana source does me in. So how this works is my opponent activates the grindstone, they hold priority, they sacrifice the grindstone to turn it into the painter, and it doesn't matter that the grindstone is not in play. Damn, so incredibly close. All right, opening hand is slow, but hopefully fine. We have a lot of removal here, so hopefully removal is good. Our opponent says hello. So like with this pile of removal, this is where we want to see like the Delver style opponent. Fully dead to combo. Damn it. Yeah, this is probably a 0 agency game. I at least get a refresh. This is, I guess, technically better. Lauren interacts with some art. Are you just playing that for Storm? Or is that just missed sequencing? Is there another artifact? If there's another artifact played out, then a mana was missed off Mox Opal. All right, we're going. We're not going. Okay, cool. I untapped. I wasn't expecting that. Unfortunately, this is not a deck that is playing like Thalia's and stuff. Where's the plowshares? Not what I'm looking for. We are going to pick up a red-white land on the off chance that I get a Magus of the Moon that can just shut my opponent off of some amount of their mana. My opponent has said they are new to the deck, so yes, they did just throw away a Mox Opal for no value. Hopefully I draw a land, can play Lauren, take out an LED. That would be cool. Land drop 2. Okay, we're going again. 4 total mana. Burning Wish. Is LED being cracked? No. Okay, so my opponent is grabbing an Echo of Eons with the intention of just doing another draw 7. Whims of Fate. How's my hand? Definitely worse. Lion Sash is not super relevant here. It's very hard to catch something like an Echo of Eons. Stoneforge is slow as a clock here. Solitude is unlikely to make a difference between a storm kill and not. Oh, okay, we've got a lot of mana. Ooh. That looks okay. That looks like I might not be dead. Okay, they're still going. We're dead. Well, okay, we're dead if our opponent plays correctly, I should say. If they just grab a Tendrils right now and attempt to deal exactly 20 damage to me, I can go to 21 life by solituding a Cat Warrior. Oh my god. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 damage. Solitude, itch, Lion Sash? Bitch Lion Sash. Solitude. My Cat Warrior token for 2 life. I am at 1 life. Oh fuck, there's an Echo. We're still going. Do not yield through end of turn now. So if my opponent threw an extra Beseech into that chain there, I am already dead. Trying to hang in there. On average, I shouldn't live through this. All right, it's another Tendrils. That Tendrils gets me. We almost punished a mistake. We couldn't quite do it though. Damping Sphere, great. Doesn't look good from that. We'll probably play Pyroblasts for Echo, even though they're not very good. They're going to be better than cards like Swords to Plowshares, generally speaking. Magus of the Moon isn't the best. I might end up playing it. Surgical is not very strong. It is really hard to hit something like an Echo, but a Beseech for Gaia's Will line can matter. Starting with things that are coming out, Swords to Plowshares is not good. Jitte is not good. Those are easy. Kassandra, probably not necessary here. These come in. Solitude is not particularly good. That exact scenario we just saw is going to be relatively uncommon. And then I could do something like play a Wrath of the Skies for artifact mana that is played out. And I think something like that's reasonable. Flicker Wisp, also not particularly good. It has some text. Again, this is a matchup that I fully just expect to lose. Man, that's an awkward hand. So Elegant Parlor means that Pyroblast is not available on turn 1. This hand's so slow. I'm going to mulligan this. So I have 3 lands. I have nothing that interacts with my opponent's combo. I am going to mulligan this. Just straight up, a mountain plus a Pyroblast is stronger than this entire hand. We don't have the Thalias, the Aethersworn Canonists to tutor for. Money where my mouth is. I'm going to keep this one. One of the vials goes back. I think the Stoneforge Mystic, maybe I keep the Stoneforge Mystic. That's a good way to finish the game if this plus this stabilizes me early. I'm going to get rid of Lion Sash. Okay. So I am going to take a risk. I am going to get the basic mountain and play Vial. The way that I win this game is my opponent not killing me on turn 1, and then I have some number of Pyroblast and Spirit of the Labyrinth to get me through the remainder of the game. Are you just going now? Real awkward if you just go now. I'm hoping that this is just playing out artifact mana and not a combo attempt, but it sure looks like a combo attempt. 1 card remaining, it's Echo. I am hyper punished for not holding up Pyroblast. However, I refuel my hand and hopefully get something reasonable. I have no playable cards in my hand. Here's a fetch to clear Brainstorm. Okay. Super happy to just see cantrips. Okay. My opponent is continuing to play things out, which unfortunately probably means that I am going to die. So the best case scenario is my opponent echoes again, and I get echoed into a better hand while my opponent does not combo off. That's a Burning Wish for Tendrils, though. Yep. So there's 6 mana in response. That is just a lethal Tendrils. Yep. All right. I will concede. GG's. Notably, I do not regret playing out the Aether Vial on turn 1. After my opponent has already mulliganed, and I keep a hand that does not actually have white mana, I think that if I don't play this out, I don't have the chance to get my other cards into play. So I am okay with how I assessed risk there. All right, overall thoughts on the deck list. I don't like the majority of it. I feel like Ajani overperformed in this league pretty significantly, including, I think, dealing 15 points of damage over the course of 2 turns. I was very impressed with this outside of a mono white shell. Like, this with Broadside was cool. Aether Vial is incredibly slow. I didn't really feel like I had enough mana in a lot of games. I am unsure if this card is actually worth 2 slots in the deck list. If you ask me, like, why am I playing Aether Vial rather than Ancient Tomb, I don't think I can give you a good answer to that question. If I am going to be playing fair in Legacy, I want to be accelerating my mana, be that with Ancient Tomb, Mox Opal, Dark Ritual, whatever. And while this game has an while this deck has an incredible end game, I don't know that it has enough early game here. Like, everything at 3 mana or higher is the same as everything at 2 mana or lower, and I want more early game interaction than I want end game stuff. The Yorion, in theory, should already be giving me that end game. So if I was going to make changes to this deck list, I think I would be interested in generating more 1 and 2 drops for the deck list to get me out of those early turns and get me into this mid game more consistently. With basically only Swords to Plowshares as instants and sorceries, I don't really know that Pinnacle Monk is worth playing. There's some theoretical things you can do, such as Flicker Wisp it to get an instant and sorcery back, maybe multiple times. I don't know if this is actually worth the slot. Hard to say. I do know that I hate the sideboard for this deck list. We have just no game versus combo. The Damping Sphere slots are just making it so that we are missing out on the Mindbreak Traps and Surgical Extractions that are meant to get us out of the early game versus combo deck list, and hopefully let our Hate Bears take over the mid game. But we also just don't have those Hate Bears with no copies of Thalia. So I give this one a thumbs down. I learned some great things by playing this league, but this deck list is not for me. But if it's for you and you need some cards, check out TOAmagic.com. Use promo code ThrabenU to save a bit on your order. And folks, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!